Good morning. I'm Dante Ang, President and CEO of the Manila Times. We're here with a roundtable interview with Attorney Joseph Estrada, not the former president, but the managing director of COCOPEA, and we're going to talk about education.
Hi, good morning, Dante, and to all your followers and readers, and also viewers of the Manila Times TV.
Thank you for joining us today. Attorney Estrada, before we start, perhaps we should remind people what all of the alphabet soup stands for. You represent COCOPEA, but COCOPEA also represents a number of associations. Could you just briefly tell us about your organization?
Yeah, COCOPEA stands for the Coordinating Council of Private Educational Associations. This is said to be the voice of private education in the Philippines. This is like a federation or the umbrella organization of all educational associations in the country, but only on the private education sector. So from basic education to higher education, including tech voc institutes, and the members are the following: the five national associations also in education, and these are the Catholic Educational Association of the Philippines, or the CAP. These are the Catholic educational institutions all over the country. You have the Philippine Association of Colleges and Universities, or PACU. These are the non-sectarian proprietary educational institutions all over the country, mostly higher educational institutions. And you have the Philippine Association of Private Schools, Colleges, and Universities, or PAPSCU, where the Manila Times College is also a member. It is composed of community schools all over the country, from basic education to higher education also. Then you have the Association of Christian Schools, Colleges, and Universities, or ACSCU. These are the Christian schools all over the country also. Then you have the TechVoc Schools Association of the Philippines, or TVSA, and these are all the Tech Voc institutes all over the country.
Thank you, Attorney. Just for disclosure, as Attorney Estrada said, Manila Times College is part of POPSCO. In fact, I represent our college on the POPSCO board, and the POPSCO now is the organization that's now taking its turn as chairman of COCOPEA, and Attorney Estrada is, by the way, also the corporate counsel of the Manila Times. But this is not about us. It's about education. Maybe, Attorney Estrada, give us the state of the education sector right now. We are beginning the first day of GCQ in Metro Manila, but things are pretty much still on hold in the education sector. But how is the sector right now?
Well, the education sector is struggling. It is actually, when the ECQ started, I would say the education is in a perfect storm. It's in a very challenging position because, as you know, even prior to the ECQ and the COVID-19 national emergency, the education sector has already been beset with a lot of problems, particularly on quality based on the results of the PISA, problems on access, and all of those issues. Also on the decline of enrollment in private education, declining role also of private education, and then suddenly the COVID-19 happened, and now everything is urgent, and we all have to address all of these issues. And access problem now has moved towards, has evolved to a different issue. It's no longer classrooms and teachers, but now access to other modes, except for physical presence in the schools. So today, this is actually very important for the educators, because today and tomorrow, a lot of the school personnel will be going back to the schools to do the preparation for the school opening, which will happen between today and August 24 for for both public and for the private education sector, because the public sector will open in basic education will open in August 24. For higher education, it can actually open anytime depending on their academic calendar that they have set.
Yeah, your group COCOPEA issued a statement earlier about the economic losses. It cited some figures. Um, could you share with us those figures again?
Yeah, the economic losses
Impact.
and the impact on the higher education sector is really serious, and we're actually computing it based on the loss of revenue losses from last academic year, and also the continuing losses because of the delay in the school opening. So we're actually just looking at around 30 billion worth of losses for the entire sector per month of delay.
Per month.
So yeah, per month of delay. So we're already now suffering losses because, as you know, it's already been delayed. If we open in August for basic education, and also for higher education, if we don't open as soon as possible.
Well, and how are the private schools coping? Have there been reports of schools furloughing its teachers and other employees? Are they on a no work, no pay arrangement? What have you heard from some of the private schools? What's going on?
Yeah, definitely, because of the economic impact on the education institutions, the hardest hit are the school personnel, because 70% of the budget and the cost of running the school goes to salaries of school personnel. I can say uh, all of them are affected. The all school personnel, we have around 300,000 in basic education and around 100,000 in higher education faculty. I would say all of them are affected. They're under they are either on a reduced pay or on a no work no pay, starting from March up to the present.
Right, and I think people may be surprised to realize that not all of the private schools in the Philippines are thriving. In fact, even before this health crisis and the economic fallout, many of them have been struggling for a long time with many things, including the transition to the K to 12 system. Could you elaborate on that, Nano?
Yeah, that's very accurate. The private education has been struggling even before the COVID-19, simply because it relies mostly on tuition of the parents, and those who are also suffering from financial difficulties. Of course, they have difficulty in sending their children to private education, and and actually, even before the COVID-19, year in year out, the private education suffers a decline of around 25% in its enrollment, and that is prior to COVID. So we're looking at the worst case scenario of between 30 to 50% in the decline of enrollment this academic year, for combination of reasons, not only for economic reasons, because some parents also have intimated that they're not willing and ready to send their kids back to school, whether it's online or offline. They're skipping the school year this upcoming academic year. So we're dealing with that, and definitely we need government intervention, because the private education sector cannot do this alone in order to survive.
Yeah, you mentioned the students, and of course that is the other side of the coin in this subject. One group that is affected, of course, as you said, are the teachers and the personnel of the schools. What has been the impact besides the fact that there will be a drop in enrollment? What has been the impact so far on the student side? Given the fact that many of them, have been recipients of some government subsidies, including the voucher program, but they have had to stop because schools are closed because of the pandemic.
Yeah, the social impact on the students is also tremendous, and it affects them and their families if we'll have a prolonged suspension or delay the school opening, or if we scrap the entire school year altogether. Based on my observation, if we start later than August, so September onwards, that would effectively would make us lose one academic year. Because if you start in September and over the regular 10-month school year, you'll end by June. So effectively, the next we will be pushing forward the school years. And based on the based of one economic modeling study, I think by National University of Singapore, also with our own ADB here, a delay in one school year for students is equated to 10% of future earnings of the family.
Wow.
So this has great impact, and the impact is also seen at various levels depending on the age of the students. Like for example, those who are near graduate or near finishing senior high school, um, stopping for the year may be an option, and probably they'd be exploring work after that and not pursuing further education, even college. And this will delay their capabilities also for them to take care of themselves, and they'll be passing on the parents will be passing on the burden to them. So this really creates a tremendous social impact on the families. And also when kids are in the school, if we're talking about the younger pupils and students, especially for public education, if they will not be attending school, they will be at home, and the parents will be left to take care of them, not being able to go to work. And some families also rely on the free food, from
Hmm.
the public education
School
and
meals, breakfast.
school meals. Yeah. So all of these things, we're looking at this. So definitely, this is beyond labor problems and viability of schools. We're looking at serious economic and social impact to our country, and of course, the economy. We want also to contribute to efforts to bring back our economy in shape. And we think that in all of the plans to come up with stimulus packages, economic stimulus packages, we feel that education should be part of that.
Wow. And just to be very clear, the president mentioned earlier that there should be, or his preference is that there should not be classes while there is a health crisis going on. So no classes, no vaccine. Just to be clear, COCOPEA is not entirely against that. Is that correct? Is that a correct understanding of your position?
Once it was already clarified that what the president was referring to was physical or residential
Physical
learning in
attendance.
campus. We have no problem with that because, as I always say, the schools are preparing for school opening under the flexible learning options, and the physical reporting is actually dependent or contingent on whatever the government would say, especially our health experts. We're not ready to compromise the safety and health of our students also.
So your position is congruent with the president's, that you're also concerned about the safety of students in a
Right.
face-to-face class arrangement. That's correct?
Right, right. Definitely, we are on the same page as regards physical or residential learning of the student.
But COCOPEA's position is that classes can continue under what you said earlier, under alternative modes of learning. Could you elaborate on what is possible in the Philippines? Because everybody knows that,
Mhm.
I drive along Roas Boulevard, and there are patches of Roas Boulevard that has, weak cell phone signal. But is the education sector planning for these alternative modes? I remember reading in the Manila Times that Secretary Briones is even talking about using radio, traditional media, I suppose, like TV as part of the package of new approaches. But could you elaborate on the private sector side, what you guys are preparing for?
Yeah, when we talk about flexible learning options, this include any delivery mode that would not require physical presence of the students inside the classroom, or a combination of different modalities.
Mm,
All right. So there's also a subcategory, the synchronous mode and the asynchronous mode. When we say synchronous, it's like all the students are still attending all at the same time the classes,
I
but
see.
it will be under online or whatever, or other modes of video conferencing. Asynchronous, this includes whatever modular deliveries. It doesn't require students to be learning all at the same time. So basically, this includes offline and online delivery mode. So it's not really focused on online or those which require internet connectivity. It can be, for example, in one school, they have put in place pick up points and drop off points for the school and for the students to pick up learning materials, textbooks, instructions from the teachers, for the parents to pick up, and also to submit the accomplished task of their students. And this is completely offline. So, and it was also mentioned about the use of government TV, radio. These are actually very good access points for the students. But definitely that TV or radio use uh, should be supplemented by other modalities that would allow interaction with the learner and the teacher, because in the TV program it will be one way, unless
All
it's
right.
like a reality TV, right, where it asks for a text response. So all of these things, but we're like in other countries, like even in other countries who are more advanced than us, more economically advanced than us, they've not completely removed the face-to-face learning, but they're preparing for social distancing, use of wide spaces, etc. And they have started with planning for the higher age groups when they required the students to come back. So I think for us, it's very hard also to sustain a fully online or a fully distance learning for a long time. Probably we'll have to wait for the vaccine, but hopefully it comes soon or sooner. The Deputy Secretary said the earliest is 10 months from now. So probably we'll do some planning based on that schedule. But definitely the Philippines would not be able to sustain this for long term, like
Yeah.
what we have seen also in other countries.
Yeah, I know from again my personal experience, because my son during, I think, the second semester of the existing school year, the lockdown had of course impacted classes, because they were suspended, and they continued the semester through online. So some of these things that you're mentioning have are being tried out, or are being tried out as we speak. And what is your feedback so far from the private sector? How is it coming along, and what are some of the difficulties they're experiencing and will probably experience when the new academic year begins?
Yeah, last academic year, some schools or especially the higher education institutions, they were still in the middle of their of the academic year. Some are midterm, some are in the final term.
Like your
So
son at LaSalle, right?
yeah,
Your
right,
sons, I
right.
should say. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So for this school, they have to close the academic year using online
Mm.
mode. But because of some difficulty and some issues also with parents, a lot of the schools were also forced to cut short the academic year. So, and then those issues, interconnectivity, online capabilities, readiness of the parents, readiness of the homes, to move towards this new normal of delivery of education. These are issues once again in the reopening of the schools. So, but I think it has also opened a lot of awareness on these issues that we have not realized before when the flexible learning options were viewed as alternative to formal education. So now it will be the mainstream, and I think it will be a privilege, or the alternative mode will be the with the physical delivery mode.